It all began on Halloween night a couple of years ago. I live in a tiny town, the kind where you probably know everyone's dog's name. Halloween, to be honest, isn't a huge deal here. Most adults just switch on their porch lights, hand out candy bars to the few kids who wander by, and then call it a night. For me, though, it's always been a time to huddle indoors with a bunch of close friends and laugh at silly horror films. But that year was different. A friend of mine, Jess, decided to switch things up. Instead of our usual popcorn and a movie, she wanted us to actually experience some real Halloween vibes. "Let's take a walk through the woods at the edge of our town," she'd suggested. I wasn't entirely thrilled at the prospect, but figured, hey, it's Halloween. What's the worst that could happen? We started our little adventure just as the final rays of sunlight gave way to dusk. Jess, always the brave one, was leading, and I trailed behind. Though we had a flashlight with us, the light of the moon was almost ethereal, illuminating our path in a soft, silver glow. It was quiet, save for the distant hoot of an owl or the rustling of leaves beneath our feet. Around 20 minutes in, Jess abruptly stopped, squinting at a narrow path that forked off the one we were on. "Let's try this way," she whispered, as if afraid to break the sacred silence of the woods. I hesitated, but then nodded, trusting her sense of adventure. The path was uneven and choked with underbrush. It was clear that not many had walked this way in quite some time. A strange feeling crept over me, like the trees were closing in. The air grew heavier with each step, and an unease settled deep in my gut. Then, without warning, Jess froze. I almost crashed into her. Following her gaze, my eyes landed on a small clearing. I'd like to say what we saw next was just a figment of our imagination, a trick the moonlight played on our eyes. But it wasn't. There, right in front of us, stood about 10 individuals dressed in black, their faces obscured. They were arranged in a perfect circle around a stone slab. Laid upon it was something. The dim light and distance made it hard to discern, but it was possibly an animal. It was then that I understood. We had accidentally stumbled upon something we weren't supposed to see. It looked like a ritual. A rational part of me wanted to brush it off as just a bunch of folks playing some elaborate Halloween prank. But the primal fear that surged through my veins told me otherwise. Jess's grip tightened on my arm, her eyes wide with terror. We had to leave, and quickly. But as we began to back away, fate played its cruel hand. A twig snapped loudly under my foot. Time seemed to slow down as every head turned to face us. Their eyes, reflecting the moon's glow, met ours. What followed was a blur. Jess and I ran as if our lives depended on it. We didn't stop, didn't look back, not until the comforting lights of our town were in sight. We never did talk about that night. Perhaps we were both trying to convince ourselves it was just our imagination running wild. But every Halloween, when the moon is high and the night is still, the memory resurfaces, a chilling reminder that there are things out there, lurking in the shadows, that we may never understand. And while I love a good scare, some mysteries, I've realized, are better left in the dark.